Improving the American School System by Incorporating Indigenous Knowledge Systems by Charity McKean. As of 2007, minority students made up 42% of public school enrollment. We see many different learning styles within this multitude of diversity. American classrooms only address one or two learning styles. I believe incorporating indigenous knowledge systems would expand the teaching environment into one that accommodates multiple learning styles. There are very few teaching models that appropriately accommodate both consistent educational values and human diversity. Students whose culture has different behaviors and beliefs than the majority culture are at a real disadvantage. Four basic ways in which we all interact with a situation. Cognition, how we're going to get that information. Conceptualization, what we do with the information. Affect, our motivations, judgments, values. Behavior, how we react. Start with cognition. All right, so the first step of cognition is perception, or how we receive, obtain, and discern information, ideas, and concepts. People can be either visual, auditory, or kinesthetic learners. Visual learners need multiple visual learning opportunities such as graphs, films, demonstrations, and pictures. They need to see the concept. Auditory learners can listen to instructions and follow them easily. White children, which is our current majority, are auditory learners, or we start off that way. White children are bombarded with sound and are strongly encouraged to express themselves vocally. So that tends to be the way our classrooms, as you can see, are based. Your lessons tend to be lectures, oral instructions, followed by maybe taking some notes, reading a textbook, answering questions. Kinesthetic learners need to use their sense of touch, learn best through the hands-on approach. They need to manipulate the concept before they can fully understand it. Conceptualize. Some people are always looking for connections, while others are divergent. One idea triggers a multitude of directions. I'm sure we've all met people that are constantly getting off on a tangent. Other people are linear. They need to put the ideas in a nice sequential order. That's the way they view the world. Some are impulsive, answering quickly, or reflective, who respond slowly, considering all options. I think anyone who's been a teacher, we've seen those impulsive students. They raise their hand before you can even finish asking the question. And then you have those other students who are slow to respond. I'm afraid oftentimes if we feel like they're too slow to respond, and we mistake that as being having a mental or slow reaction, and we tend to label that. Affect. All right, so our motivation, judgment, values also characterize individual learning style. People are either motivated internally, they do it for themselves, or externally, trying to please someone else. Decisions are objective, or they can be subjective. These affective differences are also stylistic and interrelated with the conceptual and cognitive characteristics. How does a person react to the information they have acquired? Some people can scan a situation and get the overall idea, while you have others who need to focus on one part of a problem first. Some need structure, while others prefer open-ended situations. Gould, in 2001, really great statement. In order for teachers to provide an equal opportunity for all students to be successful in school, they first must have a deep understanding of individual differences in learning. Indigenous knowledge systems. And the U.S. is the current superpower, but we still rank 17th in the developed world for education, according to a global report by education firm Pearson. One way educators are looking to improve student learning is by utilizing indigenous knowledge systems. Indigenous people obtain knowledge through direct experience with the natural world. Subsistence activities are a form of science. Competency is tested through survival, though, not an objective test. Current teaching practices are detached from the real world, meaning that it's much harder for a lot of students to understand exactly what we're trying to teach them. When am I going to use this? As a former student, I've actually asked my teachers this question. As a teacher, I have heard it even more. Typical classroom lessons are simulations where we ask our students to imagine what concept we are trying to teach them. By exposing students to a concept like they would as the indigenous people do, they would understand the significance. They would see the connection. It would be there. Man, A Course of Study. This was developed in the 1960s as part of educational reform for fifth grade students. Filmed a year in the lives of the Netsilik Inuit in what's now Pelly Bay. This work was based on cognitive psychologist Jerome Bruner, who believed that if you really wanted to do educational reform, you had to teach people how to understand the nature of man. Now, this project took away textbooks and it took away the authoritative commentary on the films used. This curriculum also took up the whole year. This was all these fifth grade students studied, was this curriculum of watching these films that, as I said, were not narrated. It allowed the students to act as the anthropologist and draw their own conclusions on what they saw. While the students involved in the program responded positively, parents and politicians were against it. They felt that the films were too graphic. The children were being shown actual hunting scenes. They felt it was too bloody, too much killing. Congressman Conlon of Arizona at the time was the main political complainant, who said the Inuit were too primitive of a society. He didn't feel that they should be an example for students to follow. Complaints ultimately caused the loss of funding and brought the project to an end. This negative attitude inspired Charles Laird to make the documentary Through These Eyes. It outlines the program and discusses the controversy surrounding it. I highly recommend viewing this documentary. The program, the MAKOS program, I feel is something that we could use today with some modifications. The current United States education system does not accommodate for the majority of students, geared toward the Western learning style of auditory learners, using oral instruction as the main form of instruction. Indigenous knowledge systems and ways of knowing encompass more learning styles and give the student a better connection to the concepts being taught. One of the largest obstacles that needs to be overcome is the Western idea that our way is the only way or the best way. Curriculum of MAKOS, I believe, is still a valuable tool in educational reform. It takes some modification to address the concerns that originally occurred. However, the basic idea is still a viable one. As a nation, we must stop looking at our ethnic and cultural differences and instead focus on our common similarities and goals. Thank you.